Alright, when it comes to animal face-offs, there are perhaps no other animals as iconic as a lion and a silverback gorilla. You know, they're basically a unit of measurement at this point. Everyone wants to know just how much a gorilla can lift and how many lions it would take to destroy the sun. But let's cut straight to the chase. You clicked on this video because you're wondering who would win in a fight between a lion and a silverback gorilla. Now, some of y'all are probably thinking, well, a gorilla's strong, right? Can't it just body the lion with King Kong level haymakers? And to that, I say no. And this is not the Lion King where the lion would make a gorilla backflip into a stampede. In actuality, the answer of who would win is actually quite obvious, and honestly, it's a pretty big mismatch in favor of the lion. If you're one of those people who genuinely believe that a gorilla actually stands a chance here, I mean no disrespect, but this is kind of like saying that a WWE wrestler of similar size would beat Prime Mike Tyson in a fight. Respect to the gorilla, but come on. By the end of this video, you're gonna see exactly why this fight isn't even close. But before we dive in and break down how a fight would play out, I'd really appreciate it if y'all subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. It's free, it helps my channel grow, and it keeps more videos like this coming your way. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's actually break down who wins this mismatch. Size and physique. The silverback gorilla. When you think of animals that give powerlifters body dysmorphia, gorillas are usually the top of the list. It's perhaps the animal everyone thinks about when it comes to raw strength, right? I mean, have you seen its back? The dude looks like he's been doing weighted rows and pull-ups since birth. And that's actually not far off. A gorilla's physique is actually designed for pulling, climbing, and dragging rather than doing the pushing motion. In fact, silverbacks are so absurdly strong that they've been known to easily do these weird pull-ups, which looks very hard to do, and have also been known to lift heavy logs off the ground casually and straight up snap banana trees like nothing, something that would take a professional fighter multiple kicks to do. So yeah, they can rep your deadlift max for warm-ups, but we get it. They're strong and everything, so just how big is a silverback gorilla? Well, it really depends on which subspecies we're talking about. The largest are the eastern gorillas, with the mountain and eastern lowland silverbacks being the heaviest, and trust me, for the gorilla's sake, we're gonna be talking about the eastern gorillas here. So a fully grown silverback gorilla weighs anywhere between 340 to 430 pounds on average, and stand about 5.5 to 6 feet tall upright. So yeah, they're pretty brawny primates here. And with that size comes their massive arms that would make any powerlifter feel insecure. And yeah, when fully stretched, their reach spans up to 8 feet. So sounds like that could be an advantage against a lion? Maybe. I wouldn't go betting yet. A gorilla's long arms are built for moving around on all fours. You know, they're mainly quadrupedal, and that's where things get dicey in a fight against a lion. You see, defaulting in that position leaves the gorilla's back and rib region pretty exposed. Now you might be thinking, isn't the lion quadrupedal as well? Yes, but this is actually the perfect time to mention this. Gorillas have skin just like humans. Its flesh is tightly wrapped around the muscle, and thus, its skin, again, just like humans, is easily rippable, which results in a lot of bleeding damage. Yeah, you know how cat scratches hurt? Now scale that up to a 400+ pound lion with 1.5-inch claws. Yeah, that's not a scratch, that's a fatal wound. And speaking of lions, their defense is vastly superior. You see, the lion has fur, which actually bunches up with an applied force and provides a barrier around the muscle region. Let's also not forget their mane, right? How's a gorilla supposed to get past that? What's it gonna do, slap it? Yeah, nah. Anyways, just how large is an African lion? Well, the average South African lion weighs anywhere between 400 to 430 pounds. So when comparing the lion to the silverback here, they both are within the same weight range as each other, but at similar weight, you might be thinking, isn't a gorilla vastly stronger than a lion? Well, no, not at all. In fact, it's actually closer than you think. Lions have been documented dragging buffalo carcasses, and there's even footage of one lion hauling both a wildebeest and a Nile crocodile out of water at the same time. Yeah, that's not just impressive, that's a nightmare for the gorilla to deal with. You see, the lion has something called functional strength, which is different than the gorilla's pure brute force. Think about it like this. A lion is built for latching onto and pinning down animals while also dragging carcasses. The gorilla just has more pure force, like snapping branches and tossing around large rocks. So if we're talking about strength and feats, I'd say they're pretty much evenly matched. But that's where their similarities end, because when it comes to fighting style, weapons, and natural instinct, one of them is entirely in a different league. So this brings me on to my last topic, which is weaponry and fighting IQ. Alright, so what would an actual fight between a lion and a silverback gorilla look like? What are they really bringing to the table? Well, this is where the mismatch becomes painfully obvious. Let's start with the silverback. When gorillas fight, they rely on wrestling, tossing around their opponents, and clubbing with those massive arms. But here's the thing, gorillas don't have precise control over their individual muscle groups like we do. So when they strike, it's more like chaotically flailing their arms around rather than a well-placed punch. And sure, they got hands, but they're not built for punching. They're actually built for grabbing and manipulating, right? But do we really need to break down why grabbing a lion would be a terrible idea? If it's that close, the gorilla already made a mistake, because the lion is gonna be shredding its ribs with its claws. And speaking of the lion, yeah, they're winning the weaponry matchup by a mile. Lions are armed with razor-sharp claws, which are perfectly evolved to tear through thick hide and muscle. A few swipes and the gorilla skin, which is thin and human-like, is getting shredded. And then there is the bite. They kill with it. Their canines are longer, sharper, and deadlier than a gorilla's. And their jaw structure gives them a serious edge. You see, lions have elongated snouts, which not only give them a longer bite reach, but also allows them for rapid, repeated bites. Something the gorilla can't really match. Now I know some of y'all are gonna be bringing up the gorilla has a stronger bite thing. Let's clear that up, okay? Yes, you'll hear numbers out there like 1300 PSI for the gorilla compared to the lion's 1000 PSI, but in all honesty, they're not too far apart, and that's not the full story. Bite force alone doesn't mean much if you don't have the dentition and skull mechanics to deliver injury. This is called bite effectiveness, and the lion has a serious edge over the gorilla here. A silverback's teeth are adapted for an herbivorous diet, not puncturing organs. But what about their canines? Well, they're mostly used for display and intimidation. And sure, gorillas do bite in fights, but they're not killing anything with it, you know? And if they want to bite, they have to get super close to their opponent because their mouth is pressed right up against their face, just like a human's. On the other hand, a lion would go straight for the kill zone when biting, you know, the neck and spine. And this leads us to instinct. The gorilla does not have a killer mindset. It's a mostly peaceful, plant-munching, chest-beating herbivore. Fighting for them is usually about dominance, not to the death. They don't go for vital organs, you know? You don't really see gorillas biting the neck or anything like that. They also don't really know where to target to kill, and often just leave their opponents battered. You see why that's a problem when fighting a large carnivore? Now, as for the lion, they are born carnivores. Their instinct is to hunt and kill. They know where to strike and how to finish the job. And most importantly, they know when to do it. And let's not forget the way lions actually fight. They don't just swipe, they lunge, they wrestle, they maul. Now, something unique is that lions tend to bite all over the body, such as the legs, the spine region, and of course the neck when delivering a final kill shot. But here's the thing, lions tend to stay more grounded when they fight because they are more top heavy than other cats. So this means that they are actually quite stable when fighting. Now, could that play into the gorilla's favor? You know, the lion kind of staying grounded and everything? And not really. I mean, the gorilla doesn't really have any weapons to really counter it, you know? And by this point, I'm actually struggling to see any actual advantages here for the gorilla. I don't know how it's gonna conventionally fatally injure the lion. And I know some of y'all are itching to say, but what if the gorilla throws something? Well, first of all, they probably wouldn't really have time to do so since the lion will close that gap fast. Secondly, what is a rock or a stick poorly thrown at a lion even gonna do? Let me tell you, nothing. In fact, it might make the lion even more angry. So yeah, I think it's about time we discuss how a fight would play out and determine a verdict. Alright, we have our stats. So who wins in a fight between an African lion and a silverback gorilla? Well, if not made obvious already, the lion wins. Now, it's not going to be a total stomp. This is still a silverback gorilla we're talking about. It's going to put up some sort of resistance. But yeah, for the most part, the gorilla is getting mopped here. The lion just has the right tools for the job. It has razor sharp claws, a deadly bite that's actually made for sinking into muscle, and the instinct to actually go for the kill and know where to land its hits. I see the lion rushing in, and maybe the gorilla can shrug off the first hit or two, but with that soft, rippable flesh, yeah, all it takes is just a few well-placed claw swipes and bite marks before serious blood loss and muscle damage kicks in for the gorilla. I see eventually the lion getting to the side or back of the gorilla, and from there, it's going for the ribs, the legs, and of course, the neck. And unlike the gorilla, the lion knows what it's doing and how to effectively take down a large animal. It wouldn't be flailing around like the gorilla. Its natural instinct is finishing the job. And let's be real, what does the gorilla have in terms of weapons? Maybe it's sheer brute strength, but the gorilla is not breaking into the lion's fur or causing it to bleed heavily. Now, in some theoretical scenario where everything goes right for the silverback, it could maybe grab the lion and slam it to the ground, maybe dislocate something, and possibly crush a bone, but that's a wildly unlikely scenario. If a leopard gives a gorilla a hard time, I'm sure a lion would beat it with confidence. So yeah, the gorilla is getting humbled here, but in a tug of war contest, I'll leave that up to you. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and feel free to check out the rest of my content.